Dr. Michio Kaku.
Right here.
How are you, sir? Opie and Anthony, of course. Now, we were going to ask you about the volcano, but we got into, once again, the 9/11 discussion. It's so frustrating to us, but Willie Nelson was on Larry King, and he's suspicious, and he thinks that it was a controlled freaking explosion, and the building imploded, and blah, blah, blah. Could you give us 30 seconds on that to shut up everybody?
Okay. So, what do you want to know?
Well, why would people think this is a controlled explosion when obviously planes flew into this building and the effects of fuel on the steel brought this down? I don't understand how people can't understand that.
Two reasons. Okay, first of all, everyone's been brainwashed by seeing all these controlled demolitions. We see it on television all the time. And so when we see the World Trade Center go down, we say, aha! Just like I've seen on all the videos on TV. Well, these people don't know anything about controlled demolitions. Controlled demolitions are done from the bottom. You put dynamite on the bottom of the building, not the top. You'd have to be an idiot to put dynamite on the top of a building and have it implode, right?
Yes.
But the World Trade Center went top down, not bottom up.
Right.
Okay? But these people don't know that because they see all these videos on TV. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, as was said by one woman commentator on her show, fire does not melt steel. And she said that over and over again on her nationally syndicated talk show.
Yes.
Fire does not melt steel. Well, duh. Everybody knows that fire does not melt steel. However, it weakens steel, softens it, so that the softening of steel will buckle, will cause it to buckle under pressure.
Yep.
It has nothing to do with melted steel. It has to do with buckling steel.
Weakened steel cannot hold all that concrete,
That's right.
and that's it. That's all you need is weakened steel.
That's it.
Oh, those people.
How come it takes a theoretical physicist to explain common sense to people?
But they'll ignore what Michio Kaku is saying today, and they'll continue down this dumb road.
Of course.
And you also taught us...
Some people are ideologically married to a certain point of view. Nothing you tell them is going to change their point of view. Nothing.
And you also taught us that most buildings are made of air. Most of the building is made of air.
Yeah, the reason why it went into free fall is, of course, it went into free fall. The building is empty, for God's sake. I mean, how
Relatively
is it that battleships
speaking.
can float if battleships are empty?
Right. Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, see.
All right.
All right. This now we saw you on TV earlier.
You're turning into the go-to guy, huh, Dr. Michio Kaku?
Well, people want to know about, what natural phenomenon, about physics, and about reality. So that's what I try to provide, What do the laws of physics say about the universe, about our own backyard?
Now, we should ask him about the meteor as well.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
The volcano. What's your take on the whole thing? I hear there's another volcano right next door that could erupt, and is due.
That's right. See, the good news is that maybe this will be a simple repeat of 1821. In 1821, the same volcano blew up, and the eruption lasted for 13 months, but it sputtered. It sputtered over 13 months, came on, came off. That's a good scenario because eventually the ice will melt, and ice is what makes this volcanic eruption so bad. The worst-case scenario is that the Laki volcano, L-A-K-I, which is nearby, could erupt because of this eruption, like in 1783. That eruption killed 1/4 of the population of Iceland, mainly due to starvation.
I thought he was about to say the world.
Over 50% of all livestock were killed by that eruption, causing mass famine. And in Europe, it caused tens of thousands of deaths throughout Europe, aggravated the collapse of agriculture for several years in Europe. Some historians say that helped to precipitate the French Revolution of 1789 because the French peasantry were impoverished because of that volcanic eruption. So that's the worst-case scenario, is if this eruption sets off a neighboring eruption, and this other volcano is much bigger than this volcano, which is actually quite small, by the way. This is a small eruption aggravated by ice.
And it's easier to say, Laki. That's an easy volcano to pronounce.
Yeah, we're not even attempting
that
to
other
pronounce
one.
the
Wow,
other one.
that's tough.
Yeah, that's too big. Too big of a word for us, sir. But Laki's overdue too, right?
Well, it's overdue. These cycle times are measured in centuries. The last big one was 1783. Benjamin Franklin was in Paris, by the way. He saw the whole thing happen. The skies darkened. It's called the year without summer. The entire summer was knocked out.
I hear
the eruption itself lasted 8 months.
I hear his plane was delayed coming back to the United States also, right?
That's right. They were going to put his face on the money, and they had to delay that flight.
Yes, yes, indeed. Now, a lot of people stranded. Now, I mean, how long are these people going to be stranded? How long is this going to spew this much ash and debris into the atmosphere?
Well, it could last days and weeks. The best case scenario is if the ice mainly melts, in which case the eruption is over. Ice aggravates the whole situation. Scientists are going there right now to try to find out how much ice is left. You see, when molten lava goes through ice, it causes explosions, it causes glassifying silica, and that's what's aggravating this explosion, because this explosion is actually a rather minor eruption as far as eruptions go. Once the ice is gone, the eruption will be harmless.
So it's like putting one of those frozen turkeys in the boiling oil. Look out.
Yeah, it's splatters. You get explosions.
Yeah.
You get glassification of silica. And this thing is like industrial-grade sandpaper. If it goes into an engine, it just chews up the engine, melts, resolidifies, gums up the blades. And in 1982, a plane almost went down when all 4 engines conked out when it went through a cloud like this.
Oh, wow. We don't like that.
Yeah, that's pretty frightening.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
some people say, why not fly under the cloud? Well, there's a danger there. Parts of the cloud are invisible, and when it hits your windshield, it sandblasts your windshield. I mean, what is sandblasting out after all?
Yeah.
Sandblasting is taking industrial-grade particles and slamming it into glass, right, and stone. That's what happens when an airplane goes through volcanic ash.
So you pretty much blind them.
You're blinded, right? One pilot actually had to land an airplane by sticking his head outside the cockpit.
Old school.
Because his windshield was sandblasted by a volcanic ash.
Wow. And now we got this this meteor that was seen over where was that, Wisconsin?
Yeah, Midwest, right. It was a rather. It's on the internet. You can see.
Yeah, very bright.
You know, the impact.
Lit up the sky.
I was very surprised at the length of time that this thing was lit up. They said they started seeing it a good 15 minutes before it really came through the atmosphere and really got bright. That seems to be a long time for this thing to be heated up in the atmosphere.
Well, we do have a telescope in Arizona. It's the only one in the world that is capable of actually seeing the meteor before it actually hits the ground. Oh. It was successful last year. For the first time in history, it actually recorded a meteor as it hit the atmosphere. Then, of course, people on the ground saw it explode in the air, and then people picked it up off the ground. It was in Sudan. So all 3 stages, in outer space, hitting the atmosphere, and landing on the ground, all 3 stages were documented. The first time in history, just a few months ago.
How long would we have advance notice for the theoretical planet killer type asteroid or meteor? How much warning would we have that something that could be devastating to the planet is on its way?
Well, asteroids, big ones, are very easy to track because you go in circles around the sun. Mm-hmm. The comets from the Oort cloud, way, way out there, they're the most dangerous because as they approach the sun, they have irregular orbits, periodicity 10,000 years, 20,000 years. And when they approach the sun, they have no tail because they're covered in soot. Once they go behind the sun, then the soot blows off, sprouts a tail, and then you got a few weeks warning before it kills you.
Oh, that's wonderful.
A few weeks warning before it kills you.
A few weeks.
A few weeks, huh? Wow. That isn't enough time to do anything, considering we don't even have a shuttle program.
We've been brainwashed to think that the space shuttle can reach a comet or asteroid. Mm-hmm. Wrong. The space shuttle simply spins circles around the Earth.
Very low orbit.
Go into deep space.
Yeah, low orbit. Is there anything that we have available on the planet right now that would be able to be used to defend against something like that?
We would have to use some of our planetary probes. They can actually go into deep space, but it takes weeks and months and years to get some of these rockets assembled and pointed in the right direction. Remember, the space shuttle can only go in circles around the Earth.
Right.
You have to have one of our planetary probes that goes out to Mars and places like that.
Yeah, that would be
those rockets.
That would be a little too late if to get it in kind of low Earth orbit. You'd have to attack that thing while it's pretty far out there, huh?
That's right. You want to nudge it out of the way. Blowing it up like what Bruce Willis would want to do is the worst thing you want to do, because then you get all these baby asteroids coming at you.
Oh, we can't send a drilling team there to drill and put a atomic bomb in there, huh?
That's the worst thing to do, because, these asteroids may be collections of rocks that are held together by gravity. So they may not even be solid. And so by blowing it up, you have lots of mini asteroids coming at you.
So what you'd have to do, in essence, is have some type of propulsion device to attach to this thing and kind of push it out of the way.
Well, the cheapest way to deflect it is to simply paint it. Shoot a rocket that simply spray paints, like graffiti. Graffiti is the asteroid. That changes its absorption of sunlight, causes a slight pressure because of sunlight pressure, and nudges it out of the way as it slowly whips around the sun.
Almost like one of those light bulb-looking things with the black and the white on each side, and it spins around because the black is absorbing heat?
Yeah, sort of.
Is that kind of...
That thing actually goes in the opposite direction. It's the heating of one plate versus the other side that causes it to spin. But yeah, in general, if you paint an asteroid far, far away, it will absorb more energy and deflect it a bit. You can actually calculate.
Sent some MS-13 up there, yo.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's
spray painted.
Spray painted.
I never heard that one. What about things like solar sails attached to it?
Yeah, you could do that. There have been a number of proposals. Another one is to actually use the gravity as a tractor beam, the gravity of a rocket ship to push it out of the way. Another ingenious way is to shoot a laser beam at it, which will vaporize the surface of the rock, causing a jet. And the jet will then push the asteroid out of the way.
All right, okay.
Yeah, so laser
interesting.
beams, spray paint, the gravity of a tractor beam rocket. All of these have been looked at, but they're all very expensive, and they're many, many decades away.
And it would be,
we are sitting ducks.
So we're sitting here pretty much biding our time, hoping nothing happens until we do have the technology available.
That's wonderful.
To work on that. Wow.
What do you think about the shuttle program ending there?
Well, I'm not happy about it, but, we are in an economic crisis. I just hope the Russians don't get uppity and, use an excuse in the Balkans to shut off our space program.
Yeah, exactly. I find it kind of embarrassing that us as a country have no way of getting our astronauts up to a space station that we really paid for.
Right. Who would have thought? Who would have thought that after all the billions spent on the race to the moon and beating the Russians, that we wind up paying the Russians $50 million per astronaut, $50 million per astronaut for access to outer space. Who would have thought that?
I think that's crazy. I find it very disheartening as an American and just embarrassing that, all these cuts now, especially in NASA, it doesn't even look like in the near future we're going to have a craft to take astronauts up there on our own.
Yeah, and some people are saying that NASA is an agency to nowhere. And the astronauts are astronauts to nowhere. I mean, where are they going to go? Now, the recent press conference by Obama did allay some fears. He finally said we're going to go someplace. We're going to go to an asteroid in 2025 and maybe Mars in the mid-2030s. Who knows for sure?
Mm-hmm.
But, some people are saying, well, where's the beef? Okay, you want to go there. That's fine. But where's the beef? Where's the money?
Yeah,
that's the problem.
I've always just thought that the space program here in this country has been a source of pride and a source of new technology that we've gotten that we use on a daily basis from the space program. I mean, I don't think you could go through a day without using numerous items that have been used on the space program and invented directly because of the space program. And it's just a shame to see something that's that important to our country just go to the wayside.
Yeah, we are so dependent on outer space, telecommunications, the internet, GPS, weather satellites. All of that goes through satellite technology. And, we take it for granted until there's a solar flare or something that it threatens our satellites. We take it for granted. And the economy, a good chunk of the economy goes through outer space. Parts of this radio transmission go through outer space.
Yeah, exactly.
And, look, hey, we're just going to have to get used to the fact that after 2020, the Chinese are going to plant a flag on the moon saying that the Chinese have gone to the moon. Okay, if you're okay with that, okay. You're going to have to get used to it. Used to the fact that other nations are going to leapfrog ahead.
Yeah,
hopefully, Obama will say something more definite about what he wants NASA to do.
Yeah, I think he
But
just put a
right
Band-Aid
now,
on
it's an
everybody.
agency nowhere.
I think he was just putting a Band-Aid on everybody's, opinion of his cuts. I don't like it. I think it does take away from jobs and new technology that make new products that, again, makes new jobs. And I think NASA is a very important agency for our country. And I hate the fact that we don't have a ship. The budget's been cut. And I don't know. It's embarrassing.
The problem is cost. It costs $10,000 to put a pound of anything into near-Earth orbit. That's your weight in gold
could be a
to
fortune.
put you in near-Earth orbit. To go on the space shuttle costs about $50 million to go on the space shuttle, just to go around the Earth. So it is expensive. My personal point of view is that we should look at non-chemical means of going into outer space.
Oh, now that's what are you talking? Maybe magnetic rail firing us up there?
Something even easier. Let's say you have a laser rocket, laser beam on the Earth, so you don't have to put the laser into space. It's on the Earth. You shoot a laser at a payload which contains water. The water boils. Water is harmless. And as it boils, it shoots out one end, and only the payload goes into outer space. Why is space travel so expensive? Because the chemical rocket has to put itself into outer space.
Yes, and that's very, that's the heaviest part.
God, he just simplified it.
Dr. Kaku wants to do one of those pump-up water rockets, that's pretty much is what he's suggesting.
Now, prototypes of this have been fired successfully. They're small prototypes, but you can use ground-based lasers on the ground, which do not have to go into outer space, to energize water, so it boils, to shoot the payload, just the payload, into outer space.
He loves his lasers.
Small scale.
Does Dr. Kaku love his lasers?
Going back to basics. Now, unfortunately, this guy didn't hear your 2012 discussion, but basically, Michio Kaku is saying the 2012 thing is all bullshit.
Yeah, bunk.
Right, Dr. Michio?
Well, you see, the Mayans did say something about 2012. It's a time of celebration. It's their New Year's. But I think Westerners have hijacked the calendar for their own purposes. In the Mayan culture, there is no history of apocalypse. That's a Western concept. In the East and also in these societies, what they celebrate is the renewal of the seasons, not the end of the world. That's a Western concept being imposed upon an ancient Mayan time of celebration. We're supposed to celebrate in 2012.
There's so many, people love interpreting things and then spreading it around like it's fact or it's just
because
insane.
they make money on it. Think of all the books that have been written about 2012.
Movies.
Right?
Yeah.
Big business, 2012.
Movie, too.
People are making a lot of books.
Sure.
Anyone can write a book because anyone can say, well, the Mayans meant this, the Mayans meant that. But if you actually go to what the Mayans had, they had a calendar that is cyclic, and it's nothing but a new cycle. But it makes for a good copy. You can make a lot of money saying that that's the end of the world.
Now, obviously, 2012 BS. What's the one thing we got to worry about as humans? What's the next big thing? You told us last time an earthquake taking out a city, a major city.
Tsunami.
A tsunami.
Like that, right?
Yeah, well, if you take a look at disasters now, okay, volcanic eruptions take place on a scale of centuries. But earthquakes, we are overdue for a big one in California and Tokyo and Istanbul. And so in our lifetime, we'll probably see one or more of these great cities reduced to near rubble. And we're just going to have to prepare for that fact. Another possibility now on a scale of centuries is a gigantic solar flare from the sun that wipes out all communications, satellites, and our power supply, like what happened in 1859. This is called the Carrington event. It was the largest solar flare ever recorded, because, of course, we didn't have electricity before that period of time. We had telegraph wires, but you could read the newspaper at night in Cuba because of the aurora borealis in Cuba. In 1859.
So
this is unprecedented.
So that would be devastating because we know people, if you take their technology away for any length of time, we're going to revert back to being animals pretty quickly.
That's right. Take a look at electricity. Without electricity, food rots. You'd have food riots within 3 days. no rescue crews from outside because they're paralyzed, too, with food riots. Governments could collapse. And the physicists have estimated the damage of another Carrington event. And, again, we don't expect it to happen for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
However, it would be about $2 trillion. $2 trillion damage to the world economy if it knocks out power supplies, transformers, power stations simultaneously, and all satellites simultaneously going out because the sun has a temper tantrum.
We are kind of at the mercy of
nature.
You know, this planet and the solar system. And
Well,
you know,
we think we're so hot, right?
Yeah.
But Mother Nature says, ha, you humans are puny to what I can do.
Yeah, you know, it really is amazing. Sometimes when you get these cataclysmic events, you realize how actually small they are on a planetary scale, but how devastating they are locally to the people that it happens to. And you realize, yeah, if something bigger were to happen, that could really screw up civilization.
Right. And some people think that maybe Mother Nature is having revenge on us because we have all these earthquakes happening in a row. Now we have a gigantic volcanic eruption. But if you think about it, earthquakes and volcanic eruptions happen all the time, but mainly underwater. Underwater.
Oh, yeah. Well,
you forget that there's no CNN underwater. There's no peoples to die underwater. But the Earth erupts all the time with monster earthquakes, monster volcanic eruptions underwater.
that's only on the fish news, and I don't get that on my cable network.
So it's not that we're having more earthquakes; it's that they're happening in places where we care about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what happens is, you know, we are encroaching on Mother Nature. That's what's really happening. Mother Nature is not angry at us. We are encroaching upon her. You know, back in 1821, when that volcano blew up in Iceland, there were no transatlantic flights.
Right.
And in 1783, Benjamin Franklin didn't mind being stranded in Paris because ships were unaffected by what was happening in the atmosphere.
And rumor has it he did like his women.
So now we are encroaching on Mother Nature. So we're going to find more of these things. We're going to have more earthquakes killing people, more encounters with volcanoes because of progress. Because we have more technology that we didn't have 100 years ago.
Wow. And what about that Yellowstone thing you mentioned one time on our show? Is it an earthquake under Yellowstone?
Well, okay, there is a monster supervolcano under Yellowstone.
Okay.
We don't know when it's going to erupt. It erupts on a scale of hundreds of thousands of years. However, if you do go back, you know, about 500,000 years, you find eruptions that are just cataclysmic. If it were to happen, it would destroy the United States of America as we know it. It would just basically take out the entire middle of America. But again, these eruptions take place on a scale of hundreds of thousands of years, not hundreds of years, not decades, but hundreds of thousands of years. So it's very hard to predict. There's also another supervolcano in the Canary Islands. If it collapses simultaneously, it'll create a landslide that'll push water into a tsunami. The tsunami will then go across the pond called the Atlantic Ocean and devastate Boston, New York, Washington, D.C., or Boswash, as we call it.
Boswash.
So that is a doomsday scenario, two doomsday scenarios. Again, you know, their cycle time is on a scale of thousands to hundreds of thousands of years.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like spinning the wheel, though. It's got to happen sometime.
Yeah, it's inevitable. It's inevitable that Yellowstone will blow up at some point. And that's what's going to, if you can simply put fast forward on the videotape, hit fast forward, look thousands of years in the future, you'll see that the guts of America will be taken out.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Well, Dr. Kaku, thank you again for enlightening us and our listeners.
And
you're
you can
always
catch more on the Science Channel.
Of course.
I host Sci-Fi Science on the Science Channel.
Absolutely. I love the show, by the way. You're very entertaining and very interesting with the subjects that you cover and some of those theories and everything. I love it. Love Dr. Kaku's show.
Dr. Kaku, when can we look forward to a new season of Sci-Fi Science?
Oh, well, yeah, we're filming it right now, even as we speak. We're in the middle of filming the second season. The second season debuts in fall of this year.
Yes.
Very cool.
It's the #1 show on the Science Channel.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
You're beating out How It's Made?
That's a tough one to beat.
I like that one too.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, that's good.
Dr. Michio Kaku, always a pleasure. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, thank you.
All right, there he goes, Dr. Michio Kaku.
Dr. Michio Kaku.
Very interesting.
I love when we touch on like you slip in a sexual thing or a curse, and he doesn't acknowledge it whatsoever. Like it never happened.
He doesn't even hear it.